listening to PetLifeRadio.com.
You've had a long day at work, and you can't wait to just get home, take off your shoes, plop yourself down in your favorite chair, and relax. You walk up to your tranquil residential home and your neatly manicured lawn in your quiet suburban neighborhood, put the key in the lock, open the door, and... Yes, the pets have gone wild! What were you thinking? Welcome to the show about everything you always wanted to know about exotic pets, where to get them, what to feed them, and how to care for them. You'll even find out why some people live with a monkey. Now, here's your host, exotic pet expert and author Bob Tart. Hey, Bob, what were you thinking?
Hi, I'm Bob Tart, author of the books Enslaved by Ducks and Foul Weather. And this week on What Were You Thinking, we are talking about African pygmy hedgehogs. And my guest is Jill Warnick. Hi, Jill. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Great, great. Now, tell me a little bit about yourself before we start.
Okay. Well, I've been living in Boston for the last 20 years. I'm actually from Michigan as well. I'm a dental hygienist here. But my big passion has always been exotic pets. And over the last 13 years, I've been breeding hedgehogs, and I just love it. They're just the cutest, and I can't see stopping.
Wow! 13 years breeding hedgehogs in Boston.
Right.
Well, that's very cool. How many hedgehogs do you have right now?
Now, I breed in a very small scale. I have about 3 females and 1 male at about all times. In the U.S. now, if you breed over 3 females, you need to be USDA licensed. And they just passed a law that before then you needed a USDA license to just even breed 1. But now they passed a law where if you have 3 or less, you don't need 1 anymore. But so yeah.
Now, what is all that about with the license? Because I've never heard about that before with other animals.
Yeah, certain animals you don't. Birds I know you don't. But certain exotics you do, and it's just, I guess it's definitely for the welfare of the animal. I guess the USDA department comes over and twice a year and makes sure you're breeding what you say you are. They're vet inspected. They look and see your setup and make sure, things are, food is covered and the animals are in big enough enclosures and stuff like that. So and that's what that's all about.
Well, that's a very good thing. At least as I'm not a big fan of government intrusion, but that's a good thing as far as making sure that people are being responsible with the hedgehogs. I was wondering, are these animals that, I don't know anything about the hedgehogs, if you put them out in your yard and set them free, would they be able to survive on their own or not?
No, well, not here up in New England or in the cold areas, climates, they would never be able to live through the winter. Certainly in warmer climates they could. Now, these are the African pygmy hedgehogs, so they don't hibernate. European hedgehogs will hibernate. They're the bigger ones. Those are not the ones in the pet trade. It's the African pygmy ones, and they really need to be kept warm, 72 and above. 72 to 82, 90, maybe 85, something like that is a good range. 75 is probably best, but nothing should be lower than around 72. So we have to keep them warm in the winter, especially people here in the north. We keep them warm by using ceramic heat lamps and heating pads underneath the tank or the enclosure.
Yeah, I want to ask you about that because we sometimes need heat when we have a sick bird. I was just wondering, though, I'm wondering if part of the government regulation is because they're afraid of, in warmer climates, in the U.S., of the hedgehogs maybe, turning into an invasive species of some sort. Because I think there's actually, on the bird front, there are some states in the United States where you can't legally keep Quaker parakeets, which is a kind of parrot, because they're afraid of them escaping and becoming pests.
Right. Well, there are a few states, hedgehogs are illegal to own. I think California, Maine, Georgia, I think the 5 boroughs of New York City.
Wow.
Pennsylvania, and I might be missing one, but there's about 5, yeah.
And do you think that's the reason?
in some states that is the reason. I'm sure in California, Hawaii, that would be the reason. Now in Maine, it baffles me. I mean, they wouldn't last, a winter. So
yeah.
So I think just some laws are hard to get changed, where it gets wrapped up in the red tape there. So, but we certainly know how to take care of them. I mean, there's books on them. There's commercial food for them, and again, they would never, like in the colder states, ever start populations if they got loose or anything like that.
Well, I do want to go off on a tangent just for a second for my own selfish self-interest, and you mentioned the heating pad and the ceramic heaters. In the summer, my wife raises orphan songbirds. We have a permit to do that, and if they don't have feathers, we keep a heating pad under the birds. But we find that, heating pads you just buy at the drugstore, that they tend to get really hot even on low settings. Do you find special heating pads somewhere?
Well, some people do use some heating pads. I don't even really, personally, I tell my customers to keep them warm by using more overhead lights and red light bulbs that are made for reptiles. Because I think heating pads, this is a mammal. It walks, more up high. It doesn't kind of skinny on the ground like a reptile would, how it would heat its body up. So I like the air circulating warm in the enclosure rather than just right on the ground. But certainly people do use them. And, if you were going to use them, I would just put them in a little, like half the, maybe just a quarter of the enclosure so we can get to the cool areas as well.
That makes sense. And do you find the red bulbs work better than the ceramic?
Well, the red bulb is good for hedgehogs because they're nocturnal creatures, so you can't use anything with light during the night. But the ceramic ones work fine as well. I just think the red ones are kind of interesting to see the little red glow, and they're all running around still. But the ceramic ones are fine. Yep, they're fine as well.
Okay, so you mentioned that you need to keep the hedgehogs warm. What other requirements do they have as far as their housing?
Well, I like to tell my customers to house them in more of an open, like maybe a small rabbit cage or guinea pig type cage where there's good ventilation around.
So a wire cage we're talking about.
Yeah, wire cage is the best. People certainly do use aquariums, but I find they're harder to clean, and the ventilation isn't so great as well. They're very easy as far as maintaining, the bedding on the bottom. Don't use cedar. A water bottle. As far as food goes, there are commercial foods for them, but a lot of breeders don't really go for that. A lot of breeders will breed will feed cat food, a high premium cat food, where the first ingredient is a meat product, not a byproduct or a filler. Where a lot of these commercial foods for hedgehogs, well, if you read the first ingredient, they're always like some kind of filler and rice and peanuts and all that. And so as far as food goes, I always recommend a really high-quality cat food.
You mean like a dry cat food you're talking about?
A dry cat food,
something like
not wet food.
Something like Science Diet, that kind of thing?
I'm not sure. I don't think Science Diet actually has a meat product as their first ingredient. I could be wrong. It could be a byproduct, because I remember years ago we used to feed them that, but then we a lot of breeders changed. I feed mine Purina 1.
Okay.
Dry cat food. It's easy to get. You can get that even at most supermarkets. And the first ingredient in that is usually chicken. Chicken and rice one is when I feed them. But any high-quality cat food.
Do they need fruit, vegetables, roughage?
Fruit. You can try fruits and vegetables. Now hedgehogs are insectivores, which means they're insect eaters. They're not rodents, which is good. They don't chew on anything. They're not going to chew your wires in your house or anything like that. So we also recommend freeze-dried crickets. You can get them. Yep. You can raise your own mealworms and feed them mealworms, and they'll eat every stage of the mealworm, not just the worm itself.
Oh, so when they start going through their transformation into the beetles, they'll still eat them.
There's no way with hedgehogs. Yeah. Every single stage is fine for them.
Did you know that there's a sort of a mealworm shortage right now nationally?
Is there really?
Yeah, apparently a national distributor in Illinois or Indiana went out of business, and they must have been a huge distributor, because I've had a few people now tell me that it's kind of impacted them.
Oh, Oh, wow. I wonder how that happened. Wow. It's very easy to raise them yourself. You can just have a batch and go on for years with that one.
So is that what you do?
I used to, because I used to have geckos too. So there was a lot to go around, a lot of mouths. But I don't anymore. But it was so easy to.
I know you need a large tray, and you have a medium for them to live in. Isn't that right?
Yep.
What do you put, oatmeal or maybe not oatmeal?
All kinds of. Yeah, I used to go to Whole Foods and get the best.
Yeah.
I figured, you whatever you feed them is going into your hedgehog. So you really want to really what's called gut feed them.
Yeah,
some really good food. Yeah.
And then do you put potatoes or something in for them?
I put kale because it was good for calcium, especially for pregnant moms.
Yeah.
Potato, apple. Yeah.
So you took good care of your mealworms.
Yeah, I really did.
So what's the mealworm cycle like? So you have the mealworms in there, and then what happens?
Yep. Well, you get your mealworms. I put I got a whole bunch, like a Petco or something, like 500, and they start off as a worm, and a few weeks later they will turn into like a pupa, which is like it's. I don't know how to describe it.
They're really kind of shocking if you haven't seen them before. It's like
prehistoric looking, like alien looking thing.
Yeah.
And they'll stay in that stage for a while, and they won't crawl around in that stage. It's just they're just there like little blobs. But and then after that stage, that will turn into the beetle, which is called, I think it's like a brown beetle, and then it turns eventually black. And even the beetle itself, if you put them in one of these ceramic dishes, can't even get out. I mean, they can't crawl the sides. And they'll eat the beetle as well. And even when they die, the beetles will lay eggs in media. And you won't see the eggs, but in about 2 or 3 more weeks, you'll start getting little teeny mealworms. So you'll have all different stages of mealworms.
And will the mealworms continue to eat the food that you would put in for the adult mealworms?
Yeah, they'll all eat the same food, but they will lay their little eggs in the food there and in the media there.
That doesn't sound too hard.
No, it's really easy, and it's not smelly or anything.
Oh, no.
And you do get used to, at first I thought it was kind of creepy.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then, you get used to it. It's kind of interesting,
Yeah. How about freeze-dried mealworms? Have you seen those before?
I did, and I thought I read that they don't really gut feed them. For some reason, the crickets, they give them calcium. It'll say right on the thing that they contain that they were fed calcium. But for the mealworms, it doesn't say that they were really fed anything. So I'm not sure how nutritious they.
Okay, where do you find the freeze-dried crickets?
I find them in places like Petco.
Okay, I'll have to look for those because I think our birds might like those.
Yeah, those are great. Yep, they'll love them.
And as far as housing the hedgehogs, do you keep them separate or can you keep a couple?
Well, the females can be housed together if you have plenty of space. They are solitary animals in the wild, so they don't really need the company of another one. But females can be, if you want to, a lot of my customers want 2, and so they can only get 2 females. Male and a female can be housed together, but then they, soon she'd be pregnant, and then you'd have to separate them anyway. So, and males can only be by themselves. So
they're very territorial, is that right?
Yeah, the males will fight.
Yeah,
they certainly will. But you can add, if you have a female, you can add another female at any. It doesn't have to be from the same litter. It can be at any time. So. And
they get along just fine. They will do all right.
Most of them will. Yeah.
Do they seem to kind of pal around, or do they ignore each other?
Well, they will sleep together, but it's not like you watch them play. It's they're not going to hang out too much together. They're kind of on their own. But they will end up sleeping together, usually. One time I had a huge enclosure, like 6 feet by 4 feet, and I put 8 females in there. And, some slept together, some wanted their own little nook and cranny, so they have all different personalities.
And I want to talk about that since we've been talking kind of about some of the nuts and bolts of the care. We're going to take a quick break for a word from our sponsor, and then we'll be right back with Jill Warnick, and we're going to get into the pet potential of hedgehogs and their personalities and that sort of thing. So we'll be right back.
What Were You Thinking? We'll be right back after Bob gets the ducks out of his living room. Don't go away.
Does your dog have problems walking with its back legs? If so, your dog is one of 58 million dogs that suffer with problems with its rear legs. Problems such as spinal myelopathy, arthritis, and hip dysplasia. Bottoms Up Leash helps your dog walk. It's a rear support harness that has won numerous awards such as Dog Fancy's Editor's Choice Award as Product of the Year, and it's been featured on CBS and Good Morning America. Visit the website www.seniorpetsupplies.com.
Fluff your feathers, roll out your tongue, shine your fins, snap on your leashes, and grab your human. It's the Louisville Pet Lovers Expo. 2 full days of pet-tastic fun that no pet lover should miss. Join us for shopping, the Barks and Couture Fashion Show, Dream Pet Wedding, Ultimate Pet Makeover, Pet Communicator, Rescue Me Pet Adoption, Service Dog Demonstration, and tons of fun contests. Bring your pets and join us at the Louisville Pet Lovers Expo, Saturday, September 27th and Sunday, September 28th at the Kentucky Expo Center. For more information, go to LouisvillePetExpo.com.
Greetings, human. What planet am I on?
Welcome to Pet Planet. Here's a copy of Pet Planet Magazine, Florida's most informative and fun pet resource magazine. It features heartwarming stories and informative articles from local and national pet experts.
Excellent.
Pet Planet Magazine offers Operation Planet Rescue, helping rescued pets find new homes. And it's available at 500 locations in South and Central Florida and 24/7 on the internet at PetPlanetMagazine.com. If you're out and about with your pet, you may be featured in Paparazzi, candid pictures of you and your pet. For up-to-date pet-friendly events, activities, and pet-related services and products, Pet Planet Magazine is your final destination.
I shall take this magazine home with me.
Back to your home planet?
No, to my condo in Boca.
Pet Planet Magazine. Check them out at www.petplanetmagazine.com or 352-394-8578. It's out of this world.
Stop what you're doing and start horsing around. Every week on Pet Life Radio, horse expert and award-winning rider Audrey Pavia will be trotting out great tips on feeding, breeding, and more on everything equestrian. So set a spell and say hey to Audrey and get ready for a darn tootin' galloping good time. Every week on Horsing Around, on demand, only on PetLifeRadio.com.
Let's Talk Pets on PetLifeRadio.com. Okay, ducks are in the pond, rabbits in his hutch, and monkeys... Ow! In my car! Oh, okay, well, I go check my insurance policy. We'll turn you back over to Bob.
Hi, I'm back with Jill Warnick, and we are talking about African pygmy hedgehogs. Jill, we've been talking about food and housing, the hedgehogs. What are their personalities like? You know, what kind of pets do they make, and, you know, anything like that?
Yeah, well, all hedgehogs have this individual personality. Some will just hang with you, sit on your lap, and some will just have to go. They have to explore. They got to get down. So they do have different personalities. They're very scent-oriented, so they do get to know who you are.
So do you think they can recognize you as opposed to someone else in your family?
I think so. Personally, mine are all socialized, so I can actually give mine to anybody to hold, and they pretty much act the same way. But I have heard through other people that, my hedgehog doesn't like my husband, or you know, or he only likes me, or he only likes women. But that is really rare. But I have heard that. So to say, you know, that they love everybody, I don't know if I can speak, but my hedgehogs are really well socialized, which is very important when you get a hedgehog, to make sure the hedgehog is really well socialized, which means that the breeder has held that hedgehog baby since maybe the first week till the day it's weaned. That is a real critical period because, you know, some hedgehogs are not held. They're just plucked out at 6 weeks and they're, you know, sent to pet stores or whatever the case might be. And yes, they're real young, they're babies, but if they haven't been held, then they just roll in a ball and, you know, they start clicking, and it's like owning a pincushion for a pet.
Yeah, so they don't bond with you, right?
They don't bond. You can't hold them, and you know, people get upset, you know, they buy this hedgehog and it's like, you know, it starts clicking and.
What does the clicking mean?
It's like a clicking sound. It's kind of like a bouncing sea urchin. It just will kind of bounce into it'll roll up like a ball, and it'll kind of bounce into the direction of where it feels somebody trying to pick it up.
Really?
Yeah, it's kind of a reflex, like in the wild, say an animal was sniffing at it while it was rolled in a ball. It would try to kind of bounce up into his nose or whatever to.
Now, how prickly are they when they're rolled up in a ball? Can you still pick them up?
Prickly? They could be pretty prickly. You don't want them to roll up in balls. That could be prickly. Even when you pick them, even a well-socialized hedgehog, when you pick them up for, the first time that day and it's sleeping and stuff, and you pick them up, it will just, it will kind of jump a little bit, just kind of what's coming after me. It doesn't know, So I always tell people to just scoop right under the hedgehog, under the bedding.
Yeah.
So if it does kind of get startled, it'll just kind of, you're cushioned by the bedding.
Yeah.
And then you get really good at it, and then you kind of shuffle your hands, and the bedding falls off, and then you have the hedgehog.
Yeah. And do they the socialized hedgehogs, do they seem to like people?
Oh, they enjoy coming out. Yep, they do. At first, it seems like they're a little grumpy at first, but if you get them during the day, they just give that one little, what's going on here?
Yeah.
And then they realize, oh, okay, I'm in a hand. They're very used to hands, and, feel very comfortable in somebody's hand. And they realize, oh, okay, and they settle down for, it just takes about 3 or 4 or 5 seconds. They just might be a little startled at first. And then they'll just.
Now, can you
run
as long as
around.
I was going to say, as long as you keep an eye on them,
oh yeah,
you can set them.
Yep. They're not fast like a
bunny,
mouse would be or
yeah.
something. They kind of waddle, they shuffle, along. So they're not quick. So
And they kind of walk around sniffing things too.
Yep, they'll explore. I mean, if you put them in the center of the room, they're not going to feel comfortable like that because they're a prey animal and they don't feel comfortable that way. So they probably kind of shimmy along the walls looking around. Or, some people put them on the sofa and they kind of crawl around, climb up pillows and stuff like that. They actually, for their shape, they can actually crawl pretty well up things. But they can't hold on to you. I mean, a lot of people will, they need to actually be guided and held and cupped, rather than like a mouse or something crawling on you. Yeah.
So they won't climb up your curtains.
They're not going to do that, no. Or eat anything wood, or eat your table, or coffee table, or your wires, your computer wires.
Yeah, we had a rabbit that did that.
Yeah, you probably know about that, yeah.
Yeah. So they're nocturnal, right? And that's when they're particularly active?
They are active basically at night.
Okay,
but,
and so during the day, they're going to be sleeping?
Yeah, they will probably be sleeping in a box.
So how do they, while they're in their cage, while you're sleeping, what do you do for them so that they have some kind of entertainment or?
Yep. Well, they love all kinds of toys, anything they can crawl through. They love a wheel.
Oh, they do?
An exercise wheel. Oh, yeah.
And that's safe for them?
It's safe. Just make sure it's kind of solid wheel and not the ones with bars. I don't even know if they make the ones with bars anymore.
Okay.
Yeah. Just make sure it's solid. Oh, they'll be on that all night long.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, we spoke to someone a few months ago who had a wonderful chinchilla, and she told us about the wheel, and the same thing you're saying is not to get one with bars because they can hurt themselves.
Right.
So maybe they don't even make those anymore.
Yeah, I was wondering if they did. I remember when I first started breeding hedgehogs, I would have to tell people they could never find a wheel made for a hedgehog because they'd have to get it online or mail away for it or something like that because you would never see something like that in a pet store. It was still those little bars, where for hamsters and stuff. But I think now there's solid wheels you can find in most pet stores. Yeah.
Now they're called African pygmy hedgehogs, but what part of Africa are they from? Do you know?
Oh, that is a good question.
I'm just trying to imagine what their natural environment is like.
They're from more the savanna and the plains, more arid areas.
Okay.
Yeah, more that. Yeah.
So they're not used to living with a lot of vegetation, or?
I think they're in Africa. I think more of a scrubby area. But I'm sure there's still leaf litter and stuff like that would sleep under and and hollow logs and stuff like that. But it's definitely arid and dry.
Well, what type of person would you say is best suited to being a hedgehog owner?
I would say somebody who doesn't need a pet that's going to entertain them in the cage, because like I said, they're sleeping during the day, so they'll be looking at a box or something.
Yeah.
But I feel they're pretty low maintenance, compared to a lot of other animals and their care. The only thing that might be kind of higher maintenance is just to get yourself set up for the winter, where not making sure that the temperature doesn't go below 72.
I imagine if you keep your house warm for you, it's probably warm enough for the hedgehog.
Well, some people dial down a lot in the 60s.
Oh, okay, I don't.
Right, I don't.
Yeah, but we have parrots and things, so.
Right, but a lot of people around here do. And,
yeah.
So I just.
Yeah,
so
you guys are tough up in Maine.
Right, Massachusetts too.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, Maine they're illegal, but.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry.
Right.
Sorry.
No, that's right. But but people do, and so that's probably the only high maintenance thing about them. But other than that, it's very low maintenance. So a lot of my customers are anywhere from 10 years old. I won't sell them to under 10 years old.
Yeah, that's good.
I don't really think they're geared to children under 10, unless they are supervised, of course, by a parent.
Yeah.
But they have tender hands, and these can definitely give a good poke.
And they don't need a lot of attention?
They don't. No, I mean, you should be able to handle them at least once a day just to keep them nice and tame and stuff like that. But certainly you can go away for a weekend and leave them with plenty of food and water, and they're fine. Yeah, they're not gonna. They're very quiet, so they're good for apartments.
They don't make any loud. I can't imagine a hedgehog making a loud noise.
No,
do they squeak or do anything?
They can. Oh boy, I found out that the very first time I keep my hedgehogs in another room, and this was probably the first year when I started breeding them. Probably first year. One time I heard this sound in the other room, and I mean, where did that? It sounded like a squealing pig. And it was so loud, I couldn't believe that sound came from such a little animal. But boy, I guess a male and female were together, and she'd had enough.
Oh boy! So she was telling him, "Go away."
Yeah, go away, and she just bit him,
Wow.
So, and boy, he squealed, and so they can make. Somebody owning one would never hear that sound.
Yeah.
But they do actually make quite a lot of little sounds, but low sounds, but they do have sounds. But I have customers that are seniors. I have every single age.
Do you have a website you want to mention?
Yep, I have a website called Jill's New England Hedgehogs.
Mm-hmm.
I personally don't ship hedgehogs.
Good for you.
I know a lot of people will be going, "Yo, do you ship over here?" But there is another website called hedgehogscentral.com, and they have a list of breeders of hedgehogs, and many of them will ship.
Oh, and maybe somebody in the Boston area will hear this and want to get a hedgehog from you. So we'll make sure to put your information on the Pet Life Radio website. But in case anyone is just listening to the podcast and, isn't by their computer, do you want to give out the URL of your website, or is it complicated?
Oh yeah, it would be Jill's New England Hedgehogs.
Oh, all right.
Yep, that would be it.
All right.
Yep. And I'm also a big believer in education, and I did produce a video on hedgehogs and how to take care of them, because so many people just they see how cute they are, and they'll just want one just because they're so cute, but they do have a lot of requirements to be able to take care of them. So I do have a video called Hedgehogs Unleashed, and they can go to that website too and see a little bit of the video. It's hedgehogsunleashed.com, and I do believe in really educating yourself first.
Okay, and if they want to see the full video, is that something you sell?
Yeah, I sell it right on the website too if they
Cool.
want. Yep, sure. But there's a lot of information on the internet as well, as my website too, that
Okay.
I can read and stuff like that.
And as I recall, your website is jillsnewenglandhedgehogs.com?
Yeah.
Okay. One last question. Let me ask you, how did you originally get into hedgehogs? What is it that attracted you, and how did this happen?
Well, when back, I think it was in '95, I went to a pet expo in Boston, and some company from Florida brought a couple hedgehogs up, and I have never seen them before, and I just thought they were I was probably one of those people that should have been educated. There was nothing on them at that time. But I said, oh, I've got to have one of these things. They're so cute. But then I find out they were illegal at that time in Massachusetts, and then I just kind of pursued it for a year or two to see, things were changing. For some reason, there they were, right on the list of things that were legal to own in Massachusetts.
Oh.
And then I couldn't find one. Then I, located a breeder in Texas and had a couple sent up, and that was it. I just.
Now, do they come in different colors, or?
Yeah. There are different color morphs. There's the normals, which we would see in the wild. We call salt and pepper.
What colors are they?
Those would be like an agouti, like a dark, kind of almost a brown. And they have a little mask, and they'll have the dark nose and the dark ears. But then there's cinnamons, which would be a little lighter, and then there's apricots, would be a little lighter than that, like almost an orange. And there's white ones with dark eyes, and there's albinos, and now there's even like what's called pintos, which would be all dark with little white spots all over it.
Good
now.
grief.
So, yeah, they've been breeding. Oh yeah, when I first started off with this, it would just be like the regular normal ones, but now there's all kinds of colors.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much for telling us about hedgehogs.
You're welcome.
And thanks so much for being on What Were You Thinking?
Well, thank you.
Well, that's about it for this episode of What Were You Thinking? Thanks so much to Jill Warnick for being our guest and talking about African pygmy hedgehogs. If you'd like to be a guest on the show, well, it's easy. Just email me at bob@petliferadio.com, bob@petliferadio.com, and tell me about your exotic pet, and that's anything but a cat or a dog. So thanks for listening, thanks to our producers, and bye-bye.
Thinking about buying a monkey? How about a ferret or a skunk? Then check out the show that will answer the burning questions. Where do you get them? What do you feed them? How do you take care of them? And most of all, what were you thinking? With exotic pet expert and author Bob Tart. Every week on demand from PetLifeRadio.com.